It was the dawn of the third age of mankind, 10 years after the Earth-Minbari War. The Babylon Project was a dream given form. Its goal, to prevent another war by creating a place where humans and aliens could work out their differences peacefully. It's a port of call, home away from home for diplomats, hustlers, entrepreneurs, and wanderers. Humans and aliens wrapped in 2,500,000 tons of spinning metal, all alone in the night. It can be a dangerous place, but it's our last best hope for peace. This is the story of the last of the Babylon stations. The year is 2258. The name of the place is Babylon 5.
Hello and welcome to Chatz, a television podcast, Season 6, Chatzylon 5. Someday we're going to have a better way of saying that won't sound weird and have too many numbers in it. My name is Alan, and I'm joined by my trusty co-pilot, Magellan.
Ahoy, matey.
Here on this big boat we call life, we're talking about television shows, and this season we're talking about Babylon 5, the classic, the sci-fi show that people kept telling us to watch. We did it. And this week, as with all weeks, we watched 2 episodes, specifically Season 1, Episode 1, Midnight on the Firing Line, and Season 1, Episode 2, Soul Hunter. First, we're going to be discussing Midnight on the Firing Line, which was written by J. Michael Straczynski, directed by Richard Compton. It aired January 26th, 1994, and the wiki points out it tries to estimate the days that different episodes take place. So I'm noting those just
like
in case
the
it's
future?
ever... Right, the date in the timeline that they take place.
Okay.
So this one is noted as taking place in February of 2258, which is cool. Magellan, what happened in this episode?
In this episode, when the Narn attack a Centauri colony, Londo and Jakar, is that right?
Yeah.
Jakar. Londo and Jakar nearly come to blows. Meanwhile, raiders are attacking transport ships near the station.
So there we are. We're in our first episode. We're in the pilot. This definitely felt like a more exciting and engaging pilot than the movie. Obviously, this was the pilot that made it to air, so that makes a lot of sense.
Wasn't the movie also aired?
It did air, excuse me, but it they definitely retconned a lot of stuff out of the pilot.
Yeah, and it probably wasn't a rerun. Or
right.
Anything.
You don't get that on all the DVD sets. You know what I mean?
Right.
What did you think in general of this episode, especially as our first foray into this really huge expanding universe?
I think it's a worthwhile exercise to think about it in comparison to the movie for a little bit longer. This is always just a fascinating thought to me, where you should enter a series that has a kind of complicated structure to it. It was something that I enjoyed talking about even when we watched Farscape, where it's a pretty linear show. Like there's some confusion at the beginning of, well, this episode goes here and that one goes there, but the first episode is the first episode, but I don't know, I like that thought exercise of, sure, the pilot's the first one, but what's the best thing for people to start with? And here I don't know, because I was really engaged with this episode. When we were watching the movie, I had this feeling of, okay, there's some stuff in here that I like, but it is kind of this just sort of vapid melange of like mystery tropes and sci-fi things, and it's a whodunit, I guess, but I don't really care about it. Whereas in this episode, clearly there's some palace intrigue. These people hate each other for these reasons. They are going to try to undermine each other in clear ways that you see and that they see each other doing, but they have to keep up this decorum of, we're all ambassadors on this space station. And that is way, way, way more interesting to me than the weird kind of like cut and paste mystery thing that we got in the first one. So I enjoyed it. I had a better time watching this than that. But I will say, I think if we had started here, I would have been kind of distracted by like, who's that guy, and what, and he's from where, and like, even though watching the movie was not the best viewing experience of my life, investing in that made it much easier for me to watch this and understand what was going on. So that's kind of my complicated answer to your question.
I appreciate it. And I think my biggest problem when I was watching the movie was that I didn't feel like I had any reason to care about the characters or the mystery.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really do a good job of telling me who they are or what their deal is in a short. It doesn't have a lot of time to do that. This episode, because it concerns itself with people talking to each other, like, it's actually a pretty action light episode, which I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And that seems, bless you, that seems part and parcel with what the show is setting out to be. You know, it's a show where people talk through problems, a la Star Trek or a la Farscape. Like, it is dyed-in-the-wool sci-fi from people who watched all of those shows and knew what worked, and it starts out really confidently in this episode.
Yeah.
And what I liked the most about it was just little lines here and there that suggested huge things about the world and presented me with a lot of questions that I want to see answered, and I probably will be answered in the show, especially in the interactions between Talia and Ivanova. I feel like that just, like, the main plot is like, all right, here is the problems between the Minbari and the Centauri and Jakar's race, the whatever they are, the Karn. No, yeah. Karn is the guy. Here it comes, folks. Here's the part where we have to learn a bunch of names.
Give us a couple months while we sort through it all.
The Narn. Yeah. Karn is someone's son. Anyway, the point of the story is that these are all different races that hate each other, and we know them, we know why, and there was a war, and the Earth and the Minbari were at war for a while, but now they're not. And so the point of Babylon 5 as a space is, how do we get all these people together in the same place and live together and work together, despite the fact that we have so much history against each other? Yeah. You can say that alone is the sell of the show, and if that's all it is, then I'm good. I can watch a whole show of that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's
great. And because then we also get like, oh, and there's a mystery, and there's a Minbari council, and like there's the telepath school is like actually probably super duper fascist, and like there's a lot of open racism, and like people don't trust telepaths. Like, it opens the book on like so much potential that I think is like, this is exactly what a pilot should be doing.
Yeah. I had some reservations diving into another huge sci-fi show, because the first show that we did on this podcast was Farscape, and I was worried that we wouldn't capture that same excitement again. And, it's too soon to say how the shows ultimately stack up against each other, but I'm feeling that same sense of curiosity and eagerness that I felt when we were watching Farscape. Of, we are getting a rich, detailed world filtered through a very small corner of that world, which I think is sci-fi at its best. Like, honestly, I don't want to see a show that's like huge, sprawling, shows us different people from all different groups all over the place. I liked in Farscape that it was the story of the universe or the galaxy or whatever told from the outcasts, from a group of prisoners and criminals, and people who were, for one reason or another, people who found themselves without a home. Whereas this story, it's not the outcasts. It is the people who are like highest up in their societies. Mm-hmm. But in a way, they are also kind of separated from the rest of the world, because they're in this space that is different from the rest of the galaxy. So there's a kind of story that can be told here that can't really be told anywhere else. So yeah, I think what you were saying is that there's enough in the premise of a bunch of space ambassadors who get angry at each other sometimes that I am excited to see what they do with it.
Yeah, I'm so excited, and they start really strong with this incident on Ragesh 3, the Centauri agricultural colony. So we learn about who the Centauri is. We learn that they have agricultural colonies. Very quickly, we know what that conflict is, and the worry is like, who did this and why. And what's great, and you pointed this out when you were texting me earlier, is like we the viewer very quickly find out who did it. It was the Narn. It was Jakar's people because they were, angry about past conflict and who previously controlled Ragesh 3. And so they were trying to take it back because they felt like it was fair for them to take back what was rightfully theirs. And so they use this propaganda campaign to lie, and they use Londo's son to sort of lie to the council, and they bring in all these different people to kind of work with them. And we know that. And it's what's crazy is like Londo knows that. Londo says, he has this line that I kind of hope comes back in a big way. Londo, I think we have the most like dialogue out of Londo. Well, we're going to definitely talk a lot about Londo in this series, but he says this thing early on about how he had a dream that he can see his own death. And I think he says like most Centauri can see their own death.
Yeah.
And the way he sees it, it's him and another man in pitched combat with their hands around each other's throats, and they both kill each other together. And he says, that's how I'm going to die. And the man who it's going to be is Jakar.
Yeah, when I first saw him, I recognized him. And it's like, oh, this is the guy.
This is the guy who's going to kill me, and I'm going to kill him. That's going to be my way out. And it's like, damn. Like, I really don't want us to just, like, live in the comparing it to Farscape world, but, like, these people aren't going to become friends. They can't.
Right, yeah.
They can, at least those two, they can become, like, begrudging allies against a common enemy, but like this show is about these people being in conflict with each other. It's not like we're a ship full of friends. Like I would imagine the humans on this ship and everyone else is trying to get there and trying to be cooperative, but it's like no, some of us like just completely hate each other, and that's we can't change that, and we just have to deal with that.
The thing about it is, as of right now, there are no bad guys.
Correct. Well, there's raiders, but that's not like raiders.
Sure. Like some sci-fi properties, there will be the evil empire or the space Nazis or whatever it is. But in this, that's not what it is. It looks like the way diplomacy can look like in our world at different times of its history, where there are people who are tied to their to the interests of their tribe, and so the enemy here is not one person who's trying to exert galactic domination. The enemy is the fact that we divide ourselves along these lines and we put our identity as a Centauri or a human above our identity as a being that exists, right?
Right.
And what, as far as I know, what the show is asking is like, is peace possible? Even in this super technologically advanced future, we're still dealing with the same sort of squabbles over territory and resources and revenge that people were dealing with before boats were invented or before there were guns, And Londo says, this line really stuck with me. He says, on the issue of galactic peace, I am long past innocence and fast approaching apathy. And like that, I mean, that is, the show is putting that in front of us and saying, is he right to believe this? Take a look. Watch the show. Maybe he is, because he can see that he's going to die having the same fights that he's having right now. And maybe things are going to get better for a while, and then they're going to get worse for a while. And at the end of the day, intelligent beings are just going to fight to have the most stuff because they want the people that look like them to be the best off.
Right, and I don't actually think it's cynical that the show, like in the fourth act, we learned that it was the Narn who sent raiders to attack the colony. Like, the show is in part saying, like, yeah, Londo's perspective on the world is pretty valid because, yes, we're in war and we've always been in some sort of war and it's going to happen again, and that's just the way life is. And it's not just saying, like, no, but we're going to, like, you thought it was him, but it was actually just, like, an unknown third party, which I think robs all of the characters, if that had happened, would rob a lot of the characters of their motivation. Because it's just like, well, now we have a bad guy. And that doesn't gel with, again, what this space station is, which is, like, a sort of peacekeeping vessel with the effort of like, we're gonna bring all these ambassadors here, and we're gonna live together.
Yeah.
And that's how it's gonna be, because we have the resources to do that, and we need each other. And I appreciate that. I think the show, it's surprising to me that people said that this first season is like really bad, because while I do think it looks really rough, and we'll talk about like the CG, which but and some of the costuming, but it's written like by people who clearly had a good show Bible in on hand, and clearly like had a lot of questions that they were ready to set up, and
there's certainly
it's not like not finding its footing.
Yeah, there's certainly a world that they're trying to establish. I mean, it remains to be seen the episode to episode quality that we're going to experience. I think you and I also tend to be people who, when somebody tells us like the first season's bad, dude, we're come
like,
out
now
of
it's time to love the first season.
Yeah, we're like, that was awesome. What are you talking about? Like when we watched Buffy, and we were like, that was fun. Like I really like this show. Yeah. I want it to be better, but I'm having a good time. I think we're just kind of optimistic in that way.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. And I think, and there is a lot of optimism in this show. Like, to go back to Ivanova and Talia Winters, like those two meeting, and Ivanova is quickly portrayed as like the gruff, like grumpy lady who doesn't take any shit and doesn't want to.
She wasn't in the movie, right? She's new in the show.
Correct. Talia was.
I like her.
Talia is a retcon because instead of the telepath they had in the movie, it's her instead of the cool redhead telepath.
Oh, you're talking about the blonde lady.
I'm talking about both. So I'm saying, Ivanova, it was not in the movie. Talia, the telepath, in concept was in the movie, but as herself was not.
Got it.
Like there was a telepath, but it wasn't her.
Got it.
And the two of them have this great relationship where they immediately don't trust each other, but Talia wants to empathize because that's what telepaths do, is they like try to make relationships and build friendships. Ivanova's not having that. Mm-hmm. Clearly there's a lot of tension there. I think that this relationship is going to be one of the more interesting ones to track throughout the show.
Yeah.
It's one of the few that I like know a teensy bit about that I'm really excited about. But between their talking about the election, which I'm fascinated that this show is concerning itself over and over again with an election on Earth. Yeah. Between Santiago and the other person, Crane. That's a man versus a woman in a presidential election, by the way. We finally did it. Hashtag liberal pride, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think, what is it? Ivanova has the line, she's voting for Crane because she has a strong chin. And she's like, well, you know what? Like, this is the reason we vote for candidates now. Like, who cares? It's just the president. Mm-hmm. It's whatever. Yeah. I was so fat. What did you think about all this election stuff? Like, they kept coming back to our mate Sinclair, like sitting in his office and like keeping up with the election.
I liked it. I mean, I can't really put a finger on exactly what I liked about it. I think I just like the notion that these are characters who are sitting by the TV waiting for the results to come in. That tells me a lot about this world and about the priorities of these people, and helps ground me in this feeling of it's sort of like a nobility story, but it's also like the West Wing. Like,
yeah, it's a little bit, a little bit West Wing.
So yeah, I think it's great for the tone and for figuring out these characters and where they stand. And it also makes it prescient for our times.
You wrote here, you can't escape the election cycle even in space.
Even in space, yeah.
It's so true. And then, the episode ends with Sinclair, like, turning the lights off as the TV is announcing that Santiago won the election. And he's like, oh, all right, that was crazy. Anyways, time to go to bed. And then, like, literally lights go off for 2 seconds. And then it's like, ring, 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 ring. Sarah, you have some shit going on. It's 2 a.m. We have problems. He's like, yeah. That is such a good moment. I just wanted to get to that part with the like, conclusion to the election stuff. But it hangs over this episode in a meaningful way. And I think we're gonna, again, like, see something about that.
Yeah, I mean, what it's ultimately saying is that politics matter in this show. That it's a theme of this show. Yeah.
Right. And they know that from the beginning. I like a lot of these characters already. I think Talia, like I said, Talia and Ivanova, great relationship. What if they dated?
Is it passing the Bechdel test if they hate each other, or do they have to like each other?
I think they're going to like each other, so it's going to pass the Bechdel test.
But part of the Bechdel test is like
in this scene, do they talk about each other in ways, or like sorry, continue what you're saying.
I'm just trying to remember all the parts of the Bechdel test, because part of it is like two non-male characters have a conversation about someone who is not, or they don't have a conversation about a man, right? Like two women don't talk about a guy. But isn't part of the Bechdel test also like
they're not fighting?
That there exist two female characters or two female identifying characters who are friends? Isn't that another part of it?
I think it is, yeah, because that's definitely an important part of writing good relationships, is that they're not all just like love or hate.
Anyway, it was closer to passing than I expected it to be.
Yeah, for 1994 and for the first time these characters are interacting. I think that relationship's going to blossom. I mean, honestly, the take I had was just like we were watching a powerful relationship bloom. A gay relationship. I want to talk about, speaking of relationships, I want to briefly talk about Garibaldi and how his portrayal in this episode differs from the movie. Garibaldi and Sinclair, because it's weirdly and appropriately, Sinclair is like one of the least interesting characters on here right now. I appreciate, I mean appropriately, because like I never care that much about the like white dude protagonist on our sci-fi shows. Like
guy.
Whatever, he's a captain, he's passionate, he wants peace, and he has a cute smile, I guess. That's it. I just summarized Sinclair for you.
Yeah, I think it's enough that he's capable.
Right, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, we don't need to know much about him. I think we're maybe going to get some more that has to do with like he has a gap in his mind or something eventually, but
right, that gap ties him to Delenn and the Earth Minbari War in a meaningful way that we're gonna have to see at some point.
Yeah.
But Garibaldi is just there, like not just there for comedy.
He's just there to be kind of a fuckboy.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like we get a line early on from him about where he's like kind of weirdly, questionably racist with Londo, where he's like, "Oh, you Centauri are all like this." And then he gets all mad at Londo, and I think their relationship is charming.
Yeah,
and it also led to my favorite line of both of these episodes, which was he criticizes Londo for the problems of his people, and blames him for all this stuff, and then Londo basically says, "Okay, I'm sorry. Here, open my wrists." Like just puts his wrists out and is like, "Do it." And then Garibaldi's like, Centauri don't have open arteries in their wrists. And he's like, of course they don't. What do you think, I'm stupid? And it's like, okay, you did a lot of things there. You told me a cool thing about biology. You gave me a good dark comedy moment. You summarized these two characters' relationship in like one line. It's so good.
Very good exchange, yeah.
That's the kind of line they teach you in screenwriting class, where it's just like, boom, bam, bam, done. You did so much work with that. And I think that actor carries it. I like his accent. The guy who plays Londo is iffy.
My thing about it is his buddy doesn't have it. Like none of the other people who are his race have that accent. So I don't really get why he needs to have it, I guess. I mean, maybe that's just me thinking that alien races for some reason should have the same accent, but they don't have to. Like, yeah, I guess people of the same alien race can have different accents. It's just not something that has precedent in like sci-fi shows that I've watched. Because usually sci-fi shows, aliens of the same species will speak in a similar way.
Right. It's a race bigger than a couple of people, so there is like a logical sense to why Londo sounds different. But my issue is just like, if this is going to be a guy who we're going to hear throughout the show,
yeah,
this actor needs to pick the accent and be consistent with it. It feels very like up and down, kind of like cartoon vampire, kind of like cartoon European, just like it's all over the place, and I don't love it yet. But you can even hear him like slipping out in and out of it in this episode, to where I was like, all right, he's gonna get this. Love Veer, by the way. Love his buddy. Just very flustered, very nervous.
Yep.
Hope that guy stays around forever. There's a part where Londo is like yelling about something about how he wants to kill Jakar, and he like looks at a vase, and Veer's like, no, please, not the vase. And then Londo like throws the vase at the wall, and he's like, no, you throw the vase at the wall.
I loved how mad he got in that scene, and he's just yelling about how, what is his race again? I'm sorry,
Centauri.
Centauri. How the Centauri government are not going to do anything about the raid. And he's like, we're not going to do anything. And the guy's like, why? And he says, because we're a race of lunatics and cowards. I love that. Like, it's just such a cool perspective that he is this figure who's presented to us as having all this power. He's casting a vote on behalf of his government. But at the end of the day, he's subject to the whims that all of us are subject to, of the people who lead us. He also gets mad at Veer and says, and you can go to hell too. I wouldn't want you to feel left out. So many great Londo lines.
Londo lines, baby. Londo is just too good. Like, he kind of carries the, like, I think without him, there isn't enough, like, high emotion in this show. He brings, like, an almost Shakespearean quality of emotion and anger and, like,
he's
passion.
playing it big. Yeah.
Very big with his big, like, fan hair. I feel like if he bowed at me, I would be cooled significantly. I think it's him or it's Sinclair who's looking at some images on a computer, and then he says enhance, and then the computer like zooms in on the image, and that's my favorite thing. This show's relationship to technology is really wild. Like you said, they have radios and TV, and they wear like white button-up shirts, dress shirts sometimes to bed. Mm-hmm. But also the Centauri wear like medieval outfits. It's all over the place.
Yeah, we're still feeling it out.
Very much so. Still, just like Charlie was saying during the movie, where it seems like they just pulled a bunch of like costumes out of a closet, and we're like, I don't know, fuck that. Let's give them collars. Yeah. I like Jakar a lot. I actually want a lot more of him. Because I liked him in the movie a lot, and
we got a lot of him in the movie. I think it's okay that they sort of rested him a little bit here.
Right, him here is his relationship to Londo and to the Centauri more than it is like anything else.
It seems like maybe they're positioning him to be the most nefarious of the ambassadors.
Yeah,
I can't really tell. We'll see. I guess that remains to be seen.
Well, because he's portrayed as the rational one in that conflict, and then at the end when it's like, no, his people totally did that, he's like, yeah, and we fucking did it.
The refreshing thing about him is that he's like, yeah, I was playing you. You knew that. Of course you knew that.
Yeah.
That's the game, dude. That's what we're here to do.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so refreshing to watch this show where people don't like hide anything from anyone. They're just like, yeah, I'm fucking you over. It's gonna work. Londo and Jakar are gonna butt heads for the whole show, I bet. Or they're gonna love each other. Or both. That's just how it works. Yeah, and then also speaking of just the other ambassador, Kosh in this pilot is not dead. He's just looks like a booger and sits in a room by himself.
That's that weird suit
booger
guy?
Toilet guy. Yeah. Booger toilet. I kind of wanted to like take a note on this and then see if it came back later, but he says something to Sinclair like leave the like, which race did it? And he's like, leave the peacefaring race alone. Leave them to do whatever they're going to do. And he's like, which one, the Centauri or the Narn? And he's like, yes. Yes, let the dying race of people pass. And then Sinclair says Narn and Centauri, and he says yes. And they don't play that for comedy. That's his advice. That's his like sage Yoda advice. It's really weird. I have no idea what they're gonna do with that. I hope he's not just like the guy we consult when we're like, who did it? And then he tells them something in like a cryptic way and they figure it out.
Yeah. I'm not sure what else he could be. It doesn't seem like we can get a lot of like human interiority from this guy.
Right. You said human interiority?
Yeah.
I like that because on a show where most people on it aren't necessarily human, we still can come back to like, well, what is human about this person, or what is like relatable and realistic about this
Yeah.
humanity is not something exclusive to humans, is what we're saying.
Right, exactly. There's a sort of like literary understanding of what
Humanity
is that can
Totally.
be reflected in species that's not a Homo sapien.
Right. Speaking of which, two things about Earth that I liked a lot. One, Sinclair speaks to the guy from Tron on the television, and he's like, "Hey, can Earth like provide aid and like hella guns to us? Because we need to like figure this conflict out." And he's like, "It's an election. We can't help anyone during an election, man." It's just so fucked. And he's just like, "Nope, you're not getting any help. Bye." Earth says no. Goodbye. Close comms. Like, shit, Earth is not. It's so.
Earth is still on its bullshit.
100%. We have elections. The lady loses to the dude again. San Diego was nuked by terrorists. Did you catch the mentioning of the terrorist nuking of San Diego? Just
yeah, and he's like naming all these different terrorist plots and situations, right?
Yeah.
The scene, and 9/11 hadn't happened yet.
Yeah, we'll keep coming back to that, but yeah, this show super duper predates 9/11 in like a lot of fascinating ways.
And then Earth is still dominated by nationalist divisions because there's a global election, but there's like a United States country and a Russia vote and a China vote.
Yeah,
so that's still all going on.
It's all going on. I hope that doesn't continue to make me sad like it kind of did in this episode. It's like, oh, we're not going anywhere. I loved, just to kind of get to the third act and the fourth act, I loved all of the court scenes. Them basically concluding that, like, hey, if the Centauri government said they won't help, why did you think it was okay to ask the Babylon 5 Council if we can help? What that tells me is that you have a vendetta against the Narn, and we all understand that, and you're just trying to work around your own government. That's not how this works. Fuck off, Centauri. You're scot-free.
That's spicy.
Like, yummy. Delicious. Put that on my sandwich. I love that. It's so good. It's very satisfying. Very quick to get to the shit that you want. The show does not beat around the bush.
Related to that, Sinclair has to go... I don't remember what he has to go do. But what's the lieutenant general or lieutenant commander lady? What's her name?
Ivanova.
He like runs into Ivanova and he's like, "Hey, you got to go vote at this thing." And she's like, "Well, what do you want me to do?" And I don't remember the exact specifics, but like Earth has voted to do something that he doesn't agree with. So he's like, the last you didn't see me. The last you heard, Earth wanted to do this thing. And she's like, I got you. All right. I just like that Sinclair presents as so buttoned up, but he's really a bad boy, you know?
He's really the bad boy that we thought Garibaldi was in the movie.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, Garibaldi the bad boy." And it's like, no, Garibaldi's a fucking huge nerd who tries to flirt with a bunch of lesbians in an elevator, gets shut down, keeps mentioning how his dick is his second favorite thing in the world.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Barf. But
I can show you my favorite thing in the universe. Okay. My second favorite thing. Thanks, dude. Thanks, man.
The payoff of that is extremely funny, even if it means that during the episode we're just like, is this guy disgusting?
What was the payoff? I don't remember.
Did you not? I think it was either after the cold. This show ends really weirdly. Every episode ends weirdly. Like they do the ending, and then they do like another ending.
A post-credits sequence or something.
It's not literally post-credits, but it's like during the credits or something.
Weird.
We learn at the very end, that his second favorite thing in the universe is watching Duck Dodgers. Did you catch this part?
No.
Yeah, it's him and Delenn. He ends up bringing Delenn back to his place, and they're just like eating popcorn. And he's like, "I love this. It's my second favorite thing in the universe." And they're watching Duck Dodgers. And she's like, "Oh, this is so funny. This is like a weird. What's the cartoon about it?" And then like Duck Dodgers' like spaceship like reverses into the ground instead of going up, and he's like, "That's funny."
That's
and
so
like that's
awesome.
the payoff. It's very good.
I love that.
It's like, yeah, the show is like, yeah, we can write this guy as a shit, but what if he was also a hilarious nerd?
Yeah, that's great.
We can do both of those things. Yeah, it's super good. There's a lot of stuff here. Oh yeah, basically after the Sinclair's fighting some raiders, finds out that there's a Narn in the Raider camp who's like being directed to tell them to attack the colony. And he's like, well, I guess we did it. Londo has another vision that he's going to kill Jakar, so he just goes and does it. Or where he plans to do it. He brings the knife and everything. Which, hello, episode 1 of my TV show where one of my main characters is going to kill another one? Like,
yeah.
okay. He runs into Talia, and she's like, oh, shit, you touched the one person who you should never touch if you want to keep secrets, because now I know you're going to kill that guy. Don't do it! She doesn't stop him. Garibaldi barely stops him. And then Garibaldi has that one really good line where he said, like, he's like, if you go one step further, I have it in my rights to kill you. And
that's awesome.
And then Londo's like, would you really have done it? And he's like, yes, I would have. But I'm just as glad I didn't. The paperwork is a pain in the butt. Ra-ta-ta. Just, oh my God, the show is so good. We end up learning some other stuff about the different characters. We have everything gets figured out at the end, and they're like, all right, it was you guys. You suck. Sorry. Like, it's not solved. It's like, we know who did it, but the conflict isn't gone. It's still there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's great about it.
Because it doesn't, you don't erase problems like that.
We're just going to fight about this forever.
Yeah. And then Ivanova and Talia have the conversation in the bar, which love having a big bar in a ship. That's my favorite thing.
Oh yeah.
Ivanova in plain clothes, and she's like, I wanted to date you. Why don't you like me? And she's like, you're a telepath. She's like, what do you have against telepaths? And then we get the cool lore dump about telepaths, which is certain people in life are born with telepathic powers, and they're given 3 options. You can go to prison and never interact with society. You can go to Psi Corp, which is like a school. It's like Hogwarts, but for psychics.
Yeah.
And it seems hella fascist and scary. Yeah. Or you take medication to control your powers to, quote, protect the privacy of others, which is really dark. And we learned that Ivanova's mother was a medicated telepath for 10 years, and the medication basically made her comatose until she killed herself.
Yeah, shit.
Just woof. And then she says, I don't feel like a victim. You know, just I'd be fine being friends with you, but please understand that I have it in my rational mind to not trust the telepath right now. I'm like, shit, that's all right. We're doing it. And then then we get the Duck Dodgers thing. We get the lights turning off. We get everything at the end, and that's our pilot. It's a lot. Whoa, did you have any stray notes on this one?
Yeah. Let me take a look. Someone said great maker, so
we got gods.
God, I guess, but
yeah,
that's how that works. There was a point where Garibaldi goes, damn, and I really hope that this is a show where people go, damn, a lot.
Constantly,
like hit things and go damn. Whenever I was like getting into this show and getting super excited about it, it would cut to a CG exterior shot with just the worst sound effects. Yeah, but it's still fun. I think my favorite line, besides the Londo line about galactic peace, was Ivanova saying, I'm in the middle of 15 things, all of them annoying. It's like, yeah, that's me every day.
Extreme mood, yeah.
Londo says, sleep well, Ambassador. Oh, no. Jakar, I think, says, sleep well, Ambassador. Sleep lightly, which is scary. I like that they all can call each other Ambassador.
Ambassador, yeah, it's cute.
Because it kind of, it has this twinge of, I'm pretending like I respect you, but I don't.
Right.
It's juicy.
Good shit.
Yeah. Garibaldi at one point says, the polls! Almost forgot to vote. Better get going. I just wish that happened in more shows.
Going to the polls.
Yeah, the music in the bar was like 80s music. It sounded like...
yeah, it was like Tears for Fears or some shit.
Yeah. I couldn't tell if that was diegetic or not, but if it was, that's kind of funny.
Into it.
Yeah. That's what future music sounds like. And that's what I got.
The only note I had was, because again, all of my notes this episode were like fundamental ground level, like, here's the thing I noticed about the world that's going to be persistent. Their communications system on the ship is called Babcom, which I love. And yeah, I really want to see more Narn. I really want to see more Delenn, but we did in the second episode, so I'm, happy about that. But we got like nothing of her in this episode until the very ending with the Duck Dodger stuff. Like, kind of weird. You have a lot of characters on your show. I like seeing everybody. I like having friends, but you do what you can. And here's the thing: I wanted to bring back a trivia segment, and we probably still can't.
There wasn't any on this wiki.
The wiki itself doesn't have a lot. The Lurker's Guide to Babylon 5 actually has the opposite problem, which is that there's too much.
Okay.
The Lurker's Guide to Babylon 5 is, for people who don't know, like a really old blog that was kept up during the airing of this show in the 90s. And it looks like it. It's like a very 90s website. And they have notes for every episode about like J. Michael Straczynski's notes on the episode and like what changed from the script and like all these tons of different quotes from him. And it's like, it's too much. I'd have to sift through this every week and get stuff. But I'll try to do that here and there when I find really interesting things to bring up.
Okay.
But,
cool.
They're also really good about like not spoiling things mostly.
Nice.
I had a very tiny thing spoiled for me. Not from there, but from another place because I was trying to read stuff. But we're going to do a better job about not reading ahead on anything.
Yeah.
Because this is a long show and I don't want to like find out that somebody dies from now,
Yeah.
And then, let's read this email that we got before we head into segment 2.
Sure.
The second episode.
Let's do it.
So this was an email that we got from our buddy Dan, who has told us before that Babylon 5 is, I believe, his favorite show of all time. He was one of the big fans who told us that we should watch this and talk about it because he's excited to hear people who haven't seen it for the first time enjoy it, because apparently that's a new thing in the scope of like Babylon 5 podcasts. So happy to provide that service. He says he has a lot of thoughts about The Gathering, but they're very scattershot, so he's going to bullet point them. So John and I are just going to go back and forth and like talk about it and read these bullets.
Great.
He says this cut of The Gathering isn't the best version. The TNT Special Edition not only changes the music to match it with the rest of the show, though he does have a soft spot for those guitar licks, it also smooths out the cut and adds about 14 minutes of character development that didn't make the original cut. I feel like that would solve the problem I had where I didn't feel like I knew who anyone was.
Yeah, we just kind of felt like we didn't really have a basis.
Exactly, but
yeah,
I like the cheesy music a lot.
I also don't know if I'd want it to be longer.
No, right?
Because
like
it felt just pretty slow.
Even at like barely an hour and a half, it felt kind of slow. I agree.
Yeah. He watched this with the Amazon Prime subtitles on, and they were a train wreck, like we said. Yep. The Earth-Minbari War was the seminal event that led to the Babylon Project, so it's a real tragedy to see it called the Earth Inaudible War. He goes on to say, this is a separate thing, but if you want a real subtitle treat, you should watch the Kurt Russell movie Executive Decision with the subtitles on. The bad guys in the movie are Islamic terrorists, but at some point there was some ADR work done to downplay the Islam angle. Oh my God.
But the subtitles didn't change it.
That memo never made it to the subtitle people, and if you watch it with the subtitles on, you see all the praising of Allah and cries for jihad. That it's odd. That's really weird.
Wow. I love that. He mentions that the Babylon station is based on a design called an O'Neill cylinder, with the rotation being the way that gravity is created. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you can look up O'Neill cylinders on Google, and oh shit, I want all of these to be my desktop background. This is gorgeous. This is some Mass Effect shit. Sorry.
He points out that it was odd that people are reading newspapers in the future.
Yep.
Yeah. We'll keep our eyes out for other weird relics of the 90s predicting what the future would be.
Yep. This is a good one. The idea of those awkward door designs that we didn't like in the movie was such that if the station lost power during a breach or something and the doors were open, the weight of the doors would slam them shut to seal off the station to the vacuum of space. But there's that weird one that still has the same usual shape, but it goes sideways. And he says, I have no answer for that. So that's cool. Yeah, that's like a shutdown system. I get it.
It was a pretty widely joked about thing in the fandom that Kosh's suit looked like a toilet bowl with a curtain hanging from it. So you're not far off.
Yeah, toilet booger. With Delenn's power rings and the talk of souls in Soul Hunter, one might ask, is magic a thing in Babylon 5? He says, I've watched the entire show and its movies many times, and the only answer I've come up with is, maybe? Which is perfect.
That's great. I hope we see more of her rings.
I need those rings. I want those rings.
Mm-hmm.
You can just choke people. It's awesome.
The presumed convention for how language works with this show is that when an alien is talking to a human, they're speaking English, which is known as Earth's language of commerce. Okay, great. When the aliens are talking among themselves, it's presumed that they're speaking their own language and the show's just translating it for us. When it's a mix of aliens, they're probably speaking one of their own languages, but it's never clear which one. The show does have a universal alphabet called Interlac, but I understand it to be a strictly written math-based language used for contact situations. Cool. All right. Well, I'll take it. I like that.
Interlac was also the language of like aliens in the DC Comics universe. I don't know why I know that. I had a DC Comics phase. I'm cool. I think JMS worked on stuff like that. Thank you. He says it was a full year between The Gathering and Midnight on the Firing Line, and the only character name that stuck in my head was Del Varner, because it seemed like such a weird name for a character who was never seen again. So, sorry, Del.
Yep, see, bro. Babylon 5 has the same problem with telepaths as Star Trek has with transporters. Both are this incredibly useful form of space magic that could easily fix most problems, but each show has to find ways to avoid using what amounts to a deus ex machina. Just in The Gathering, Lita could have scanned Sinclair and seen in his own mind that he didn't poison Kosh, but that didn't happen. Right. Yeah, I don't know why we didn't think of that. The whole poison plan seemed doomed from conception, but in the case of this story, it's implied that Lita is actually involved in the plot to some minor degree and would have probably lied anyhow.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you have to be so delicate using telepaths. Like, just the fact that the rule of she has to touch people to read them is good, because if she could just blindly read people's minds, that would be extremely broken.
Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't pick up on that. Getting to the end here, he says it's a shame that Takashima didn't stick around because it was heavily seeded in the film that she was elbow deep in the plot to kill Kosh. Among other things, if you paid really close attention, you could see that it was her security code that the killer was using to get through the various doors. On the other hand, her absence gives us Ivanova, who chews scenery just as good as anyone else.
Yep.
I have tons to say about the actor changes, but I'll save those for when they apply.
Cool. As Charlie did when we were watching, you may find yourselves asking, this was pre-9/11, right? Multiple times while watching this show. Politically, it can be a little prescient at times. Stuff that seemed crazy then is our political reality now.
Elections.
Keep an eye on that.
This one was regarding a thing I mentioned during the commentary, which was that the captain change reminded me of how they did it in Star Trek. And he says the other captain from Star Trek was Captain Pike. A lot of the footage from that original pilot got used in the episode The Menagerie, an episode with one image I'm sure you're familiar with. The severely damaged guy sitting in a wheelchair-like machine speaking in beeps. I know what you're talking about. I wonder how many people listening to this know what you're talking about.
Nope, I don't.
I'll find you a picture of this. It's weird. The Menagerie is a really weird episode. The early Star Trek is like all over the place, man. Yeah, it's I have trouble talking a lot about some of it because some of it's just like so dated and awful. But thank you for that correction.
And then last bullet here, he says, you guys were born during or right after The Gathering first aired? Holy hell, I'm old. I was a nerdy teenager using a dial-up connection at school to log into Usenet to see what J. Michael Straczynski had to say about any and all things Babylon 5. So yeah, we're young, you know?
Bro, we are teens. That's where we got a problem with that. It's a little meme for the other millennials in the audience. Hell yeah, I think that's great. I think that's the thing I like about our situation is we're watching shows that aired before we were alive or right when we were born, and we're talking about them like adults. It's great. And I hope people enjoy that. So thank you to Dan for that. And we'll be right back to discuss Soul Hunter.
Welcome back to Chatzylon 5. The second episode we watched this week was Season 1, Episode 2, Soul Hunter. It was written by J. Michael Straczynski, directed by Jim Johnston. It aired February 2nd, 1994, and it may take place on March 2nd, 2258. Alan, what happened in Soul Hunter?
Well, Magellan, a badly damaged ship is brought into Babylon 5, and the strange alien inside is identified as a soul hunter, an immortal race who can sense death and supposedly steal someone's soul. Oh. So this episode's important because this is the first one-off episode that we've gotten.
Yeah.
And it's really important because it's the barometer of what to expect for a normal episode of Babylon 5.
Right.
And with that in mind, yeah.
It turns out a normal episode of Babylon 5, there's some crazy magic shit going on.
Yeah.
And a main character almost dies.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, that's the situation.
Everyone has a really good time. It's funny to me that we're already in a normal episode, but we're still filling out the cast. Because we got a new guy this episode, the Doctor, whose name I don't remember, but I should look up because he's probably important. He's the Doctor.
Hashtag not my doctor.
Dr. Stephen Franklin. Yeah, are you just going to be pro Dr. Kyle for the rest of the time? You're going to be that motherfucker?
Yes, dude. I can't believe we lost him.
But Stephen Franklin's hot and young. Franklin is
I don't want that. I want an old, hot doctor.
He mentions, it's really weird. I have no clue how canon The Gathering is because, the previous telepath left and was replaced with Talia. I don't know where Ivanova was, but she wasn't on the ship. And Kyle left and is replaced with Franklin.
Yeah, it's all explainable differences in universe.
Right. So it's ostensibly canon is how I would say.
Yeah.
But except Kosh is alive. That's the other one that I'm but did he
Wait,
not die?
Kosh died in the movie?
I thought wasn't that what happened?
That was the plot.
Songs?
The point was, yeah. Well, I thought it was an attempted assassination and there was poison in his system or something.
Oh, and he just survived, I guess.
I think so.
I don't know. I know that this is the cast that we have now, and this is what matters, and this is the present, damn it. Yeah. We have some shit going down. A big boy falls down on Babylon 5. I think bringing a whole new ship just fucking crashed, and we have a new weird race of people on for a minute, or a new dude who's from a different type of person, is cool because giving us an other means that we can define our characters better and be here's what we are, here's what they are. This is different than us. But except Delenn recognizes him immediately, and she's all Shaktoth. And I'm all right, yeah, Shaktoth. And she's no, Shaktoth. And she just
okay, it's a bad thing?
Right. Oh, okay, that sounds like a bad thing. She recommends that they shoot the boy and don't keep him around. She describes him as a soul hunter, which are type of people who in Minbari culture are used to scare kids. They'll come and steal your soul.
Man. Yeah,
exactly. It's a Minbari boogeyman. Except they're real and they exist and they there's more than one of them. It's not a single thing.
Yeah.
The soul hunter itself is just an old guy with a ruby in his head.
Yeah. So can you just explain to me what happened? Because I had to, because of the circumstances of my birth, which is a reference to something that we were talking about off mic. I had to watch this episode in chunks, on the train and stuff. Mm-hmm. So there was a point where we knew that he was evil and he was trying to take her soul.
Yeah.
But then it seemed like he was trying to restore souls.
Yep.
But then it turns out he's a rogue version of this group of people, and he actually does want to steal souls.
The way soul hunters are supposed to work is when somebody is deemed soul takeable, they swoop in and they hopefully make it in time before they die, and they take their souls in their way, which is that they put them in an orb and then they're trapped in the orb forever. But
so that's a bad thing, though. I
mean, it's morally gray because they're well, they were about to die anyway, so we just snagged them and orbed them up because their argument is like they were important. And you know who else is important is Delenn. And so that's why it's like, well, shit, she's our person. We don't want her to get soul snatched or killed or anything like that. We just want her here. That's so it becomes bad because of, the character who.
So they're trying to like preserve souls. Is that the idea?
That's how I understood it, because they have these orbs that they keep and protect and stuff. So he had the
because
problem
the
where
assumption. Sorry, because the assumption is that once you die, your soul goes away,
I think so,
or it stops existing, or something.
or it's no longer containable.
I see.
It's very likely that we're going to see more of these
see.
guys.
Okay.
In fact, I know we're going to see more of these guys. Not like a ton more, but perhaps in one of the movies, because one of the movies is called River of Souls. This soul hunter in particular, I forget if he gets a name. I don't think he does. He's like the rogue. Yeah, he's called the rogue soul hunter. Is on the run because he kept trying to do that, but kept missing it, and the people were dying, and he was like, man, damn it. So he would just go there and like drain their blood to the point where they were about to die, and then steal their soul right on time perfectly for himself. So he was like cheating the process, basically, which is what makes him a bad guy.
Got it.
As opposed to the good soul hunter, who's the other guy who's like, no, we got to stop that guy. And they chase him around the ship. It's basically like a chase episode where it's just like, where is he? Oh shit, he's over here. No, he broke out. It's like kind of supposed to be horrifying, but he's really not that scary because, like I said, he's just like a red, wrinkly old guy with a jewel in his head. Yeah. They catch him while he's draining Delenn's blood because we only know what to do with a woman when it's putting her in danger. What? And then they turn his soul beam on him and put him in his own orbs.
Got it. Okay.
Which is very badass.
So I basically understood what was going on then, more or less.
Totally. At least from what I understood. He mumbles a bunch of weird stuff at the beginning. He's like in the med bay, and he's like, low, quick, muffled, terrified, it comes, blah, blah, blah. Sinclair's like, well, first of all, Sinclair's like, turn the speaker on, he's talking, I want to hear what this guy's saying. And then he's like, it's so fake, evil monsters. And then he's like, get that speaker out of here, and just turns the speaker off. Turn the speakers off.
He's always so calm. He's like, you sound like an evil man. I want to understand you. But everybody around me thinks you're bad, so I also think you're bad.
I have reason to believe he's kind of Zap Brannigan, but good. Like, not
yeah. Like he's
like,
that's exactly right. That's the measured pace of his speech.
Everything's gonna be fine as long as we listen to people and we have weapons.
like this is him ordering at an Applebee's.
Okay.
Yeah. He's like, hello there. I was looking at your menu, and I can't help but notice that you have a special today on honey chipotle chicken crispers. Now, I don't know for certain if these chicken crispers are all that you claim they are, but the people around me seem to think that they're pretty delicious, and I have good reason to trust the people around me. So I'm going to have one order of those honey chipotle chicken crispers.
And then everyone at the table's like, damn, Sinclair. Damn.
And then Jakar's like, I see that you like honey chipotle chicken crispers before battle, just like I do.
And then Londo's like, damn it, Jakar! Damn it! You told me you don't like honey chipotle. You want the regular chicken crispers. Damn it! And then Delenn just fucking leaves, and Ivanova and everyone else is like, what the... This bit will be more fun as we get more. We know who these characters are beyond our like.
Yeah, I want to turn the Sinclair impression into the pilot impression of this show.
Yeah. Oh, where he can practically do a whole episode of it eventually. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the Soul Hunters themselves are pretty interesting. It feels like they exist here. Like, this is actually an episode that most of the guides I looked at recommended as like, definitely check this one out. And I think that's it's mostly because
like a lore thing or what?
Relating them back to the Minbari, yeah. They have a grudge against the Minbari because the Minbari didn't let them claim the soul of one Dukat, who was the Minbari leader right before the Earth Minbari War. Mm-hmm. Which is a thing that I definitely won't read about because that seems like that's where all the spoilers center on.
Spoilers, yes, sir.
Sinclair doesn't believe any of this, and he's just like, I don't know Dukat, I don't know any of this. And Delenn promises him that Dukat's cool, and they had a good reason to not let him die. We're probably gonna see that guy at some point if he's not dead. That's because that was only like, I think they say it's like 20 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not long enough that anybody in it would actually be dead, and Sinclair is from that. So, oh yeah, and then so people started like dropping on the ship because of this guy's presence, I guess. Like we have that really strange
that, like,
scene,
gambling 3-card Monty thing. Yeah.
And that guy like runs away with everybody's money and then gets like shanked brutally. I'm fascinated by that space. The wiki calls it down below, which is a term used for the various undeveloped areas of the station, mostly in the lower levels near the outer hull, etc. It's one of the most unpleasant areas and is home to the underclass, known as the Lurkers. Oh, the Lurkers Guide. So the poor just like live on the ship, but on a different part.
Yeah.
Which is something. That's something.
That's surprising to me that there are poor people on this ship. I think it's cool if they do something with it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how much they're going to do with it, but we'll see. I'm sort of reserving judgment till I see more.
I think that's a safe bet.
Yeah.
They end up giving, that guy dies, and we start to get some suspicious worry about like, does the Soul Hunter relate to that? And then he gets a burial, which another like, this show clearly concerns itself with faith and religion, because they mention that he can't get a proper burial. Because his family can't. No one who's related to him or claims to be related to him can afford anything. So like, all right, we can't do like a regular like burial ritual. I guess we'll vent him out of the airlock.
Yeah.
And then just God gone, done. That's kind of dark. That's a bit dark. Like, we couldn't afford you a funeral, so I guess you're just gonna go into the vacuum of space. Which
it's legit,
you have
though. Yeah.
It's very legit. You have to imagine that a lot of people are going out like that, because if the ship never docks, then what happens when people die? How do they get rid of the poop? I have a lot of questions. Can't just vaporize everything. So that was a little bit weird, and then we get more like space horror, like kind of like when there was the Kasha's body in the movie, where it's like, oh, we have this guy in like medical bay, and we need to examine him, but I don't trust him because he seems terrifying. And then it mostly is just like different conversations and people examining things. So to get into one of those, I really liked the conversation between the doctor and Ivanova. This is why I immediately like this doctor, is this scene. Him and her are talking about how it's a shame that humans don't live long enough, because right when we start to understand, like, this is like right after the guy gets vented out into space. And they're like, oh man, space is really big and vast and infinite, and it sucks that we only live for like at the most 100 years, and then right when we start to understand any of it, we are already dead, and that's unfortunate. And she's like, well, if we lived, it's better this way, because if we lived for 200 years, we'd understand 1% more and be just as sad, if not more sad. So why not die when you're supposed to die? And it's just a really good conversation. It says a lot about who they both are. And then he says, you're a pessimist. And she says, I'm Russian, doctor. We understand these things. It's like, good. I'm glad we still have like national identity, even within Earth. Like on Earth, there is still like differentiation between countries.
You're glad about that?
No, I'm sarcastically glad. Like, I'm like, well, okay, that's where we're at. It's weird how much this show doesn't want to release itself from the shackles of how we think about Earth and humans.
Yeah, I think that's... I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I guess I like that.
It's different. It's very different.
They are sort of telling, technology-wise, a pretty far into the future story. But politically, I guess, like realistically, 200 years from now, there probably still would be a Russia, or at least an understanding of what Russia is. Because 200 years ago, there was an understanding of Russia, or what Russia is.
And so still people are like, I'm Russian, regardless of what that means. Yeah, she says if we lived 200 years, we'd still be human. We'd still make the same mistakes. That's her sort of take on that.
Yeah.
So I kind of prefer her over Garibaldi as our like skeptic.
Yeah.
But then it's like, what role does he serve in the show? And that's a question to be answered in the future.
Well, Garibaldi's job, at least from the first episode, is just to know where everybody is when they're taking a break. He's just a character who's like, oh, you're looking for Sinclair? Every day at around 3 o'clock, he likes to drink a malt liquor in the corner of the bar or something. And it's like, really? And he's like, yeah, I know that. And the character's like, thank you.
That's awesome.
Says,
thanks.
Yeah. By the way, here's my dick. That's his whole.
Do you want to watch Duck Dodgers and maybe eat a sandwich?
Yeah.
The Soul Hunter and Delenn have some back and forth, and he's like, "You are a Satai," and this is the other thing that's like super duper deep lore that I cannot look at. Satai is part of something called the Grey Council. Nobody tell us anything about the Grey Council, please. All I understand is that it's like the ruling body of the Minbari. That's it. That's what we know so far. That's the episode. And we only know that because of the end of the episode where Sinclair like goes on his computer and he's like, computer, look me up. What was the word again? Satai. And then Siri's like, looking up Satai. playing Saturday Night Live theme song 8-bit remix. And then
it seems like that's the reason to watch this episode, is to learn why you should care about Delenn, which is that she's secretly this like highborn noble person. Like her being being an ambassador, you would think is this position of honor and authority, and for her actually it is not. She's like slumming it, which is interesting.
Right. I'm very into that. Very, very into that. The Soul Hunter runs away, and he's trying to collect her soul. The way that this is kind of a plot convenience, but it's a fun one. Similar to how Sinclair used Kosh last episode, the Soul Hunter just goes to the slums and finds this like big bug dude named Nagrath, who's just like a big bug, and a criminal kingpin that lives in the down below. Yeah, and he's like, can I get a security pass? And he's like, dude, that's like hard. He's like, yeah, can I get it anyways? And like a map of the hideaways and like all the secrets in the ship. And he's like, you know what? Yeah. You got money? Yeah. All right. Like this little information trade with this big bug dude. And it's just so strange. And then we move right along. Like, anyways, that's not dwelled upon at all. We're not going to learn anything about that guy. He's just a bug gangster. And then it's at this point, that the other Soul Hunter comes on the ship, and he's like, Sinclair, someone's gonna fucking die. And Sinclair's like, God damn it. Like 10-second pause. He says that the first Soul Hunter is deeply disturbed, and then he does take Delenn. This was the part where I was like, man, like, give Delenn something to do that's not Kid Kid. Like, that's her first major act, is to have something revealed about her.
Like, this is just her episode.
But exactly, and her first act is to get kidnapped. By a dude who just like puts blood veins in her and like steals her blood, which like boring. Although again, hinting at future things. While he's doing this, he gets like a brief peek at her soul, and he sees something shocking. We don't actually see what it is. We just understand that he's like, oh shit, Delenn's got some shit going on. She got some crazy shit going on. Anyways,
that's exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I think that's another cool avenue for development. They have this funny moment with the second Soul Hunter where they're like, can't you like sense the dude? And he's like, you know what? I can. And then they're right conveniently in front of a map of the ship, and he's like, there. And I suddenly know how to read your ship map, and this is the part that they're on. Tap, tap, tap. Like, they're on floor B. And they go in there, and they find his soul collection, which is like a bunch of dead people inside of his orbs. Because he collects orbs, and that's weird. And then, Sinclair does the, like, Star Trek Captain Kirk thing and, like, tries to fight the Soul Hunter and almost loses him, and just turns the laser on him and blasts him, and the Soul Hunter is trapped inside of one of his own orbs. It's weird. I have so many questions. I don't know if I want answered yet. It just feels like this episode is like putting a bunch of, not pun not intended, but putting a lot of balls in the air, and and letting us kind of sift through them.
To use a different metaphor, they're sort of like slowly lifting the lid on this box full of shit.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, what's in there? And they're like,
And they smack
not
your
yet."
hand like, don't touch.
Don't touch.
Don't touch. And then Delenn is freed, and the doctor helps her out, and he's like, dude, you're doing great. You're so strong. You're awesome. And Sinclair goes to Delenn's bedside, and waking for a moment, she tells him, quote, "We were right about you." And he's like, what the fuck? So I think that has to do with like him being asleep for a bunch of the war, probably.
Yeah, or whatever's going on there. He's like missing a day or something.
That's so wild. If you think about that, he just like fell asleep during a war and missed a whole day. And he said, "I think I was captured during that point and then given back. No one told me. No one can tell me." This is when he checks on the computer. He doesn't ask about that, but he instead asks about what a Satai is, and then he learns about that there's something called the Great Council. And then the other soul hunter is like, "Peace, I'm out. Sorry about my fucking cousin being an asshole." And Sinclair is like, I don't want any soul hunters on this ship ever again. And the guy's like, fair enough, whatever happened. This is the weird part. This is the like morally weird part. The soul hunter goes, "Hey, what about that like collection of souls that my brother like keeps?" And they're like, no, don't worry about it. I guess they're gone. It's one of life's mysteries. Oh well, we're not gonna give them back to you. And that seems weird. Like, wait, what are they gonna do? And then in the ending, Delenn breaks all the soul globes open and lets them all out. But like, I guess that's just them saying like, we supersede your culture's traditions and we're going to instead free these people. But a part of it to me feels a little bit like disrespectful, because it's like that's their job, is to make that judgment of like who's worthy of keeping. And we're like, no, you don't get to keep anybody in soul orbs. If we can find them, we'll take them out. You guys can't come back, and we're taking your soul orbs.
Yeah.
But the episode just is like, no, it's fine. She opens them up and she's like, yay. And like they go like dance through her wind chimes because she's a freaking hippie. She's the kind of hippie that just has wind chimes in her room. And that's how the episode ends.
Yeah, there you go.
Very strange. I want to see more of the doctor. I want to see more Delenn actually doing things. And yeah, Great Council. More about Sinclair's past. We got questions now.
Yeah, we're starting to learn some things that we want to learn more about. It's pretty awesome.
It's super cool. Let me see if I have any other little minor notes, because I took some notes on this episode.
Okay.
Oh yes. So okay, sorry. The main one that I had, excuse me, I was like, which one of these do I say? Was when they're all chasing the soul hunter around the ship. They're like, all right. And then Garibaldi's like, lock and load. And they pull out their guns. And their guns are like tiny pistols. They're like tiny little regular ass pistols. But they're smaller. It's so cute. This show, so far, we don't know that they have like laser guns. They don't have the Star Trek thing where it's like a pointer that kills people. It's just pistols that they painted gray. And they make them look like they're sci-fi bullshit. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
And then... yeah, I thought all the stuff with like the souls coming out of the orbs was like weird, but most of my stuff is just questions. So, I mean, hopefully all this gets answered in meaningful ways.
Yeah.
That is what we got this week, folks.
Heck yeah.
That's the show. That's the pod.
The show.
But John, can you do me a favor?
Sure, bro.
I want you to tell me what the kids and I and you are going to be watching next week on Chatzylon 5.
All right. It is a pretty positive sign that already I'm looking at some summaries of episodes and I am ecstatic at the chance to watch them.
Fuck yeah.
This next one is an example, and then there's another one that's an example later that I'll read to you later. Next week we're watching 2 more episodes of Babylon 5. We're watching season 1 episodes 3 and 4. First, we're watching episode 3, Born to the Purple. Great title. All
Beautiful.
These titles are so good. Londo falls for a nightclub dancer who tries to get confidential information from him. Yeah, I'm excited.
Londo.
Anything that starts with Londo, I'm on board.
100%. Yep, I'll take it.
Yeah. Then, episode 4, Infection. An artifact brought onto Babylon 5 by Dr. Franklin's mentor turns his assistant into a killing machine.
Oh my god.
Okay, so that's going to be like artifact. We'll see.
might be some silly shit.
Yeah.
But I'm into it. I'm excited for this. Like again, we've heard so many mixed, mostly negative things about season 1, and I'm like still into it. So hopefully we continue to be into it next week.
Yep.
And that is what we have. So to take it to the plug zone, you can email us at chatspod@gmail.com. You can also tweet at us at chatspod. That's CHATZPOD. And you can rate us on iTunes. And if you'd like to support the show in a financial way, you can do so by going to patreon.com/chatspod. And over there, you can back us at $2. You get a monthly commentary episode called Commentary Chats, where we watch a movie, and you can sync it up and watch the movie with us. We just put out our best commentary yet on the 90s animated hell film Ants with a Z. And
which is so much more bizarre than you remember it being.
100%. If you have not watched that movie as an adult, or if you watched it as a kid and you forget about it, I really encourage you to watch it again. Also, that commentary features my brain breaking over the course of 90 minutes. So just strap in. It's really something. Also, we announced that our next one is going to be Labyrinth, the 1980s movie. So, and then at $5 more, you get Chatz Nights, our bi-weekly hangout show, if you want to listen to us. So far, we've been doing this like New York Times relationship quiz where we fall in love with each other and theoretically date at the end of it.
Yep.
It's cute.
Sort of like a reality show, I guess.
Yeah, it's sort of like a reality, like it's our reality.
Yeah, like we're living our lives.
Yeah, and we're going to do some other fun stuff with that for the next one, but definitely peep those. And Magellan, where can people find you online?
They can find me online on Twitter at JustAFluke. That's JUSTAPFLUKE. They can also listen to my voice on another show that is on hiatus currently called Adulthood at adulthood.simplecast.fm. Alan, what about you?
Well, you can listen to me on 2 other podcasts because I'm not on social media right now. I finally made my decision. I'm probably not coming back to Twitter.
Ever?
Probably not, dude.
Big boy. I tweeted once the other day and it felt good for a moment. And then I was like, yeah, I'm good.
I'm good. Well, just, if I wanted to, if I was like funny enough and I could tweet good jokes, I would just do that. But like reading the feed, and I don't mean that I'm not funny. I'm just not Twitter funny. I would do that, but I can't look at that feed. It's just a nightmare. I tried and I was like, it's just bad. But I am on 2 other podcasts. One is actively running. It's called The Garnet Wager. That's where my friend Six and I watch the Korean game show The Genius and play games and have a good time. We just finished our discussion of season 2. Which we just put out the final episode for, and it's a very long one because we played a game at the beginning with a co-host and then discussed an almost 2-hour finale. So check that out. Nice. Also, I ordered. Well, let's not say what happens at the end of that episode, but it's got like a fun plot twist. And if you want to hear me on another on hiatus show, we have Fireside Friends, which Ryan, Katie, and I hosted for a while, where we talk about our lives. These are my friends, and we're friends, and it's good. FiresideFriends.net for that one. Thank you so much for listening to Chatzylon 5. Peace.